So we are here with our Ask the Agent. We took a break last week and we have some new information coming to you guys this week that I think everybody is going to enjoy. Nathan Edwards is our special guest. Nathan has been on the team for what, 6 years now, Nathan? Gosh, how long has it been?
Yeah.
Inform me. 6?
6 in April. There
you go. So almost as weathered as George and I, although he still has his youthful glow. And so
now we know what the secret of this youthful glow is actually. So
it's waterfront living. I think that's what it is.
Maybe. He's just got multiple screens shining bright on him.
I know. I think he's paying more attention to the multiple screens right now than the actual live broadcast. So let's say, hey, Courtney. Hey, Lori. So let me go ahead and get our screen set up to share. And we will hop right in. Here we go. All right, we're sharing. It's always important.
And we're sharing.
Okay. Well, then we're gonna pause for a second. So Nathan is our special guest this week because we wanted him to go over some neat information for our market in terms of where are our buyers coming from. We have a lot of relocations, whether to or from the North Florida area. Nathan's going to cover that a little bit into our presentation, but of course we are going to get to our little bit of a national overview, drill down into the local market stats, and then transition on into Nathan's special information for this week. Hey, Tracy, thanks for joining us. Hey, Casey. We've got Tracy, we've got Casey, Fergus. Thank you, everybody. Okay. So last week, like I said, we took a week off, but I did want to share some interesting information that has come out from the national trends from Metro Study, which is, again, we get a lot of our information from Metro Study and their hard work and their economic updates. So we've been talking weekly about things that have been impacting the housing market. Mortgage purchase applications that nationally are up 33%. I mean, that's a huge number. We were down 40% at the low of COVID stay at home. So the fact that we've rebounded all the way up to 33%, I mean, a lot of that is attributed to mortgage rates being super low. So I put on here, we have an average of 3.07 nationally for conventional mortgage. I mean, you guys could probably jump in and share some more information on that, what you're seeing. I think, George, you have a buyer that was at 2.62 the other day. So certainly we are seeing these mortgage rates really impact buyers. What do you guys think?
No, I agree. I mean, we've been harping on that for the past 2 months, just saying mortgage rates are great. Mortgage rates are great, and they just keep getting better and better and better. So,
yep.
Yeah. So if you go ahead, Nathan.
Yeah. Lenders are getting to a point where they're raising interest rates because they're so busy.
Right.
So they're overloading their production department and overriding and underwriting department, and so it's definitely a good time to lock in rate if you can.
So artificial increase of mortgage rates to slow down the market would be interesting right now, especially for us. So, if you are interested in purchasing, we encourage you to talk to a lender now and lock in your rate today. Builders nationally, something we've been tracking too, builders are performing well. We're going to get into our local builder stats, a brief look at those in a second, but overall nationally, 80% of builders have been reporting that they're meeting or exceeding their plans that they set out for 2020. Month over month, they're up 71% and then 78% up year over year. So, they are not up 71%, up 78%, excuse me. They are, 71% of them are reporting that they are up, and 78% of builders are reporting that they are up for the year. Woo!
Little different.
Little different, but still positive news. Pretty much the builders, the construction industry, those industries were all considered to be, essential industries throughout, since March. And there was a, scare. Nobody knew exactly what was going to happen. Were they eventually going to have to shut down? But it seems that has not been the case. Things are continuing to roll forward in a positive direction. And then unemployment numbers. Unemployment numbers have been decreasing. Certainly not an economist over here. We know that when some of those stimulus checks end, depending on government intervention, some of those numbers might change again if we start to restrict more of what the states do. If restaurants have to go to 50% capacity, local laws could impact that as well. However, right now, unemployment has been decreasing. To Jacksonville's numbers, in May, our actual unemployment rate was at 11.2%. And then June, that was reduced to 7.8%. So something that I think is interesting, and I really want to get your input on this, you guys, is some of the metro cities that you see on this chart. And I know it might be hard for some of you watching on Facebook to see, but when you are looking at these numbers, the cities that generally have been seeing some of the lower trending unemployment numbers are commuter cities. So, that should make sense. If you think about it, people that are in more suburban markets versus urban areas, those metro markets, they have been able to go back to work maybe in a more 100% capacity type fashion. Nathan, I don't know if that's something that you're seeing when you talk about relocation numbers, perhaps?
Perhaps. Yeah, but no, that makes sense. I think that's a good observation in that a lot of these cities are not huge populous downtown cities. They're spread out. That's a good point.
They're spread out, commuter cities. People drive to and from work. They're not taking subways, metros, buses as much. So weekly trends here. So, something that every week we bring to you, what's happening in terms of pricing, sold homes, what are days on market looking like? So here's June month, year over year, looking at the month of June. So we're halfway through July. So the best way to compare this would be looking at the middle of last summer to the middle of this summer. Average price is up. A lot of people probably didn't think that, when you're looking at a down economy that your pricing would go up, but we are up 2.8% in pricing. Sold homes, we are neck and neck in how many homes were sold in those months. And I would venture to say that if we had more inventory, we would be exceeding that sold number of homes in June. You guys probably were, have buyers that are still looking for houses because they couldn't get into one in June or May when they were making offers. Maybe they were in multiple offers at that point in time and they could not win a bid. Are you guys still working with people that have been looking for a month or two at least?
I have. I mean, we're still had a good amount of people that just, whether it be a specific criteria or just the lack of inventory being hard, it's still struggling to find homes, and not a whole lot options coming up still that meet that specific criteria. I mentioned earlier today, I have two people that have been struggling for quite a while, and that's just, I see that with a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's hard. It's tough. It's a tough market out there. Days on market. Went a little too fast. Days on market. About the same, 71 last year to 78 this year. Although I think that, when the numbers come back for July, we're going to see that trending down. And then sale price to list price. So we're sellers these days, and we're going to talk about increasing sales prices for a while. I think through, the end of next year into 2021, sales prices are ticking up. Sellers are getting more for their, in comparison, 97.17% of that list price. Buyers are willing to pay more right now to avoid, losing out on another multiple offer situation. Do you have any insight into questions that buyers are asking you guys in terms of, well, what should I offer? Or, how does that price, kind of stack up compared to what sold even 6 months ago? There might be a vast difference. Anybody help me out here?
I was going to let Nathan talk because,
No, come on, Nathan.
he's our guest. Be courteous.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting stat when you talk about it's still increasing in price and our inventory is low. So there is still competitive. You would think like, oh, COVID, nobody's working, nobody wants to buy a house. And
Right.
this is just not true, and plus, like you said, interest rates are low. So you want to take advantage of that. You want to get into that new house where you wanted to be last year or the last 6 months. And so people are doing it. And I think I shared with George last week that savings accounts are up 21% because of all this. There's a lot less spending. There's a lot less in general. So they have that extra cash to go ahead and put it down as a down payment. The problem we have, and you already touched on it, we need more listings. We need more people that need to sell their home.
Yep. I mean, that money that people are saving because they can't go anywhere, they're not traveling, they're not out buying clothes, shoes, purses, whatever it may be. They're able to save that and hopefully put towards down payment. I think that was a stat that Quentin shared with us a couple weeks ago, was that the majority of their new people coming in completing mortgage applications, they were very proud to say that they had a larger down payment. They didn't need assistance. They wanted to use a conventional loan product versus an FHA loan product, and that was something that people were really excited to talk about. Pricing and sold homes. So this is just between May and June. So in May, this is an incredible number. The average price of a sold home was $280 in May, and in June we went up to $298, $296. I mean, that's an $18,000 swing, 6.3%. Some of that may be attributed to people who got nervous in the beginning of March, April, and just took an offer that they may not otherwise have taken. And we're seeing that close out in May versus people that the later, they waited through the stay-at-home process. They got a little bit more comfortable. They realized that the housing market was going to be okay in North Florida. So, they took an offer that was more close in line with their list price. But even still, $18,000 is a really big swing. I mean, for a $280,000 house, I would say that's a pretty good negotiation if you're $18,000 different, right? I mean, with houses selling with 97% to list price.
Well, I mean, just to add to a lot of the times that we were going out to see properties, the good properties that had priced well, good areas, we weren't the only ones in line waiting to see homes. I mean, there were people in front of us, people behind us. So I think just the buyers itself had that thought, well, we have to go in quick if we really want it, and maybe offer a little bit more. Had several offers.
Sorry, I just meant you mean to explain to everybody that's watching, physically standing there in front of you, behind you, in the driveway, waiting to get in.
Right, yeah. Exactly. And that's the part of, they had that understanding, well, we need to pay a little bit more. And I had two occasions recently where we offered five over asking to get the offer in with no contributions, anything like that. And then one, I think we were 10 grand over asking, and still didn't win it, by the way. So
I think what plays into this as well is the higher price listings were a little bit more conservative, maybe taking their houses off the market, not showing it. Well, this was all going on, not sure what's going to happen. So they took, I think those higher price listings really, stopped in March, April, which caused the May closings to be down.
I think, yeah, and you also have the higher price listings be more negotiable too. So you may have had $1 million+ property that ended up selling way lower than what they originally thought, that may otherwise, if it wasn't for COVID, have been sitting on the market for another 2 or 3 years waiting for that right buyer. As we know, that can happen, get really lengthy days on market. So it's been interesting watching those number trends, and that's, you know, why we want to share that with you every week, and comparing the months and the years seems to be very helpful. So I'll go back to our next slide here. So I have 2 columns highlighted. Our weekly, you know, looking at inventory is so important because it's driving a lot of this for our marketplace. And so the last 2 columns, because we didn't talk last week, I wanted to highlight last week's numbers and this week's numbers. And if you look at the 2 columns in yellow, compared to the other columns from June, all those numbers are low. You know, all of those numbers are so low. And that, you know, is a direct reflection of the lack of inventory that we have right now. And, you know, that lack of inventory is going to drive a lot of the pricing for, you know, it's a simple supply and demand scenario. It's going to drive a lot of the pricing as we go through the rest of the year and as we go into 2021. It's really tough out there. You know, we only put if you look at the numbers and you just see that out of, you know, 571 homes last week and 678 homes this week came on the market, new listings. But last, you know, between 7/9 and 7/15, 839 of those houses went under contract. So, you know, I've said this before, but some of those homes that weren't getting any attention or weren't getting any love, you know, they're starting to get looked at because that inventory is so low that buyers are willing to turn to something else because they're waiting and waiting and waiting for another home to come on the market, and it's just not coming on the market what they want. So do you guys think that people are being a little bit more flexible with give and a take? Like, we really wanted all of these items, but we're willing to suffice with, you know, 3 out of 5 on our wish list?
I think a lot of people are, but I mean, one of the big things that we've noticed is, well, I've noticed is that there's been a lot of up and down. I mean, you look at the last 6 weeks worth of inventory, it goes up 1 week, goes down, goes up, goes down, goes up, goes down, and it's just nonstop. So you have a whole bunch of inventory comes out, people they immediately go into contract, and then the next week people assume, okay, hey, maybe there's another property that's going to come along, and it doesn't, and so they jump back to that, you know, maybe the less desirable one, and because they need a home. So we're going to see a little bit of this going up and down for the next few weeks through the rest of the year, probably going into next year as well.
Yeah. All right. So what happens when you can't find a resale home that you want to move into? You turn to the builder. And we know that North Florida is a very active new construction industry, especially as you get down into St. Johns County. Might be a little tiny on your screen, but if you look at permit data, so we pull permits, right, to see when buildings are going to be started, to see when that builder is pulling the permitting for lots that they've put under contract so they can start pouring that foundation. So if you look at first quarter to second quarter, especially the month of May, 791 permits were pulled, and June, 1,003 permits were pulled. You know, between first quarter and second quarter, there was a 4% increase this year. So, you know, that's crazy considering that April and May are two of the biggest months that we had question marks about what was going to happen locally. How is builder inventory right now for you guys?
I definitely say that May timeframe. I know we had pretty much a lack of what was available. The April did show a bunch of homes, and then May, the floodgates opened and everybody went and bought new homes. But at the same time, builders weren't starting new projects because they were concerned of how the market was going to do. And quickly, when they sold everything, they realized, okay, we've got to jump right back into it. So yeah, it's clear that June went right back into the normal build time, which probably would have happened 3 months ago. And to be preparing for the summer timeframe to have that inventory available. But just wasn't there.
Yep.
Yeah, it was bought up quick. There was a short period of about 4 weeks where you could get a really good deal on new construction,
Mm-hmm.
and then they realized, oh, everybody's buying new construction.
Yeah. We're going to pull those deals back. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I was just looking at the comments, and Courtney had mentioned, exactly what you were talking about earlier, that rate increases are being seen to control refi pipelines. Thank you for adding that in there, Courtney. We always appreciate interaction. So if anybody out there has any questions, please jump in and ask us a question while we are going. We're trying to monitor that as best as we can. So moving forward, what exactly are we going to do? What is the, we need inventory. That's what we need. That's, the builders are trying to get the properties on the market as soon as they can, spec things out, and we need resale homes. So if you are looking for, to move, this would be an excellent time to do that. Rates are low, prices are increasing. You can get the maximum out of your property right now, and then take that purchasing power that you have from low rates, mortgage rates right now, to get into something that might be more of your dream home. Suggestions for buyers. So before we go into Nathan talking about why people are relocating and how they're relocating, and more details on that, I think this is important for those people that are relocating, and for people that are looking right now. When people are out looking, there's some suggestions that we have every week. I'd love for one of you guys to run through, these and share your thoughts on this with our audience.
I'll let the guests go first.
All right, Nathan.
Thank you, George. Thank you. I saw a funny picture, I guess it would be called a meme, on sorry, Lily, on Facebook the other day. And it was a guy standing at the bottom of the stairs and taking a step like 4 stairs up. And the bottom stair was, I want to buy a house. And the top stair was, let's go look at 15 houses,
Right.
The stairs in the middle were like, get pre-approved, save some money, the necessary steps to know whether you even can buy a house, right? So that would be the first, and you have it here. If you have a home, prepare your home to get it listed.
Right.
Kyle and I are working with a customer right now that needs to sell their home, and is actually under contract already to buy a home. Have your finances in order, like whether you have money or you can always do a gift. A lot of people don't know that a family member can give you a gift of, say, $5,000-$10,000 to get you to a point where you can put that down payment down or pay those closing costs. And then a lot of times we can negotiate the seller to pay a part of your closing costs as well. So it's very, but you need the money for the down payment. Wherever it comes from, have a plan, right? And then, like you said, be flexible. We can shop off-market property. Actually, that's how I found the one that we're working with right now. They had taken their house off the market, and we called and were able to work out a deal. And that was an expired listing. Yep. George?
You said pretty much everything. But I mean, yes, it really is. I mean, there's a lot to there's a lot of things that go into it, but it really comes to being prepared, working with an agent that knows what they're doing, is knowledgeable about not just what's going on in the area, but the market itself, because that's really what makes a difference of winning an offer when that one perfect property shows up, or waiting another 6 months for the next one to pop up. So it's really important when working with when looking to buy a home, that you're able to kind of have all these little things already and ready to go, because it does take time, and that time could cost you the offer or be stuck in a multiple offer situation.
Definitely. I would say prepare your home to list in advance is probably number one on my list of suggestions. We have had people lately miss out on what they really wanted to buy because their home was not ready to go yet. So, you know, sometimes you have to take a little leap of faith to get your house ready to sell and put it on the market so that the other sellers know you're serious when you're putting in offers. So with that said, why are people moving to Florida? What is going on with that, Nathan? Although I think he left us for a minute there to leave his own podcast.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, why Florida? Where are they coming from? We're going to look at where people are moving from, why they're moving there, and then when. You know, so we're not going to get too deep in the weeds, but some really interesting stats that Florida is emerging as the number one move to state. And that's why the population is growing so quickly. So let's look at some of these things. Vast majority, though, as you probably would know, or we're local. 62% of people moved to within the same county, right? They're selling their house and they're upgrading, and we'll see that later. 1 in 6 moved out of the state, so only 16%. But when you're talking about when they moved out of state, the top destination by far was Florida, and there was actually 22. We'll see a stat later. There was a number of states. Florida was the number one move to state. Let's see, 1 of 8, I guess. 13% of all state moves were to Florida, and there's 52 states, so that's pretty impressive. And then Americans move on Saturday, shocker, and then 35% move in the summer months.
Saturday, does that mean physically moving their furniture or shopping for a house?
No, physically moving their furniture. It's on a Saturday.
Okay, all right.
So
maybe
if you
can get a cheaper rate for movers if you hire them on a Tuesday or something then.
Probably, yeah.
Yes, that is true.
If you were to sum this up, in one statement, it would be, did they move to Florida on a Saturday in the summer? And about 25% of the time, you'd be right,
There you go.
All right, we can go to the next slide.
Nope. All right, there we go.
So there's that stat I was talking about, 22. This is kind of confusing, but that means there's 22 states that Florida was the top destination for people moving out of the state. So most of that, I looked at it, most of that was everywhere directly north of here, right? Georgia, North Carolina, Ohio, a bunch of the Midwest, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, the Northeast, New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts and Maine, a bunch of people, probably looking to find better weather, but, getting away from those areas and moving to Florida, which is great for us, right? I mean, it keeps us busy. We're in the right industry, I guess.
Yeah. Is there a state, are you going to tell us in a minute which state the most people came from to Florida?
No, I think looking through it, what do you think? Looking through them, I have a top few.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with North Carolina, New York, or...
I said New York.
What? What was your guess, George?
I said New York first.
New York first, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I think a lot of Ohio people lately.
Yeah, Ohio. There was no real clear-cut winner. I mean, we work in this industry, so we meet a lot of people from New York. There's a ton of people from North Carolina going back and forth. That seems to be a strong trend. Nashville, Tennessee, big contingent. Let's go to the next one. So to more localize it, Jacksonville was in the top 4 in terms of growth. We're number 4 there.
Look at that.
Right?
Yeah.
So you got Sarasota and Jacksonville both in the top 4 in terms of population. This is the percentage of people moving, right? 55% were moving in, or it's a 55% increase, if that
Right.
makes sense. Like 150% from before. So
Yep,
that's
we talk about net migration. So more people moving in than
right.
moving out.
Exactly.
And Jacksonville's always one of those top cities.
Especially for the last 10 years.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
You got Florida. I mean, Orlando there is in
Orlando.
the top 10 as well. I mean, that's pretty good for three big cities here to be getting a ton of people moving to. You know, it's a big chunk.
I mean, some of these cities you look on here too, like especially the really high Miami, San Jose, San Fran, you know, those are super high in, you know, cost of living places where I know that we have people coming here, whether they're moving up from South Florida or they're moving over from the West Coast simply because they can get more for their money. I'm not really sure what happened in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
All right, I was wondering that too.
So if anybody out there is watching that can tell me what happened in Chattanooga, Tennessee, as to why everybody is leaving.
Is that the railroad industry? They're big in the railroad.
Maybe. Oh, hey, Carlin. And then Lori said Virginia. Virginia is probably a really good, look, Arlington's on that list. Arlington, Virginia.
Yeah. Virginia Beach, though, is on the decline. Interesting.
Military.
Alexandria is down. Yeah, there's several of the Virginia states, cities that people are leaving from. So.
Oh, hey, Sheba. Haven't seen you in forever. Nice to join us. Okay, do we go next?
Yeah. So this is why. You know, why are people moving? Better house. I mean, shocker, right? They want to sell their current place, upsize, we call it, right? Where they're up. And it doesn't necessarily mean they're getting more square footage, which a lot of people are. Usually when you get a more expensive house, you're going to get more square footage, but it's just, you know, they want to upgrade, right? Which we all want to upgrade.
Bells and whistles, location, a lot of location
new,
changes. New.
Right?
New.
Yeah. 6.3% of those were just to own a home in general, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My dog is, let me let her out real quick. Hold on.
Bye, Nathan. Look at our guest is leaving us again. I mean, this is an interesting chart. This is an interesting chart, though, because you've got 6.2% of people to be closer to work, but I wonder how that's going to change, you know, in the next year or so if people are able to work remote.
Right. If you add those two numbers together, that's 18.3.
Right. The new job or transfer plus.
Or being closer to work, right?
Yeah.
That's more than, you know, just a newer, better home. If you add those two together, almost 1/5 of people were buying house because their work changed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's an interesting stat to me. But most of these things make sense, right? People moving closer to home, closer to family that might be struggling, or moving in with family, right? Buying a bigger house. We're seeing a lot of that. I think there was a trend about 5 years ago where Lennar was trying to build some of that next gen homes with dual entrances and different types of floor plan. I think right now I've seen a big influx in people moving their parents in.
The multi-generational, yes,
yeah.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
People want a whole mother-in-law suite or an apartment somewhere on the premises. I got a couple people that are custom building homes, and they're building a whole mother-in-law suite as part of their construction because it's not that much more expensive and it gives you a lot more options down the road.
Yeah, actually, I mean, I just had somebody, a friend of mine from Illinois that I used to work with, 10 years ago, who lives in California now, who's considering moving their family to Florida plus their mother-in-law, and they want to know what they can get, for $600,000, which would buy them a studio, in California. Certainly not enough space to put a mother-in-law suite in, and we just put a fabulous property under contract this week for $550,000 in a gated community with a full mother-in-law suite, guest suite with full kitchen and everything. So these numbers are always going to fluctuate, but it'll be interesting to watch them as the work life situation changes.
Yeah, I agree. And then when are they moving? This is not a shocker to us, and probably really anybody in general. But 35% of the moves happen in the summer, and that's when we're the most, we're the busiest trying to get people in their homes before school starts. That's the biggest thing, really. Plus, it's warm everywhere, and so people are buying houses, right?
Yep.
They're moving. They're able to get moving trucks and stuff up north and pack their stuff and move to Florida. And then down the lowest month by far was December. Obviously, a lot of holidays, a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
But that's really dragging down winter, is that December month by itself.
So interesting statistic that I heard a little bit earlier about, we're in an election year.
Yep.
And you would obviously know it if anybody goes on social media. However, with an election cycle, people always ask, should I sell before an election? Should I sell after an election? Is that going to impact what I can get for my property? So one of the stats that I heard from Metro Study when they're looking at, 100 years of election data, whether you compare an incumbent who's running, or you're comparing a year in which, you have two brand new candidates, because it's at the end of someone's, term length, or you have the challenger beating the incumbent, whether any of those scenarios, if you add it all up over time, November, the actual month that the election takes place, sales are down about 15%. But then by December, sales have rebounded to about down 8%, regardless of the outcome of the election. So I think it'll be very interesting this year, because for our market, we are projecting anyways that we're going to be busy through the end of the year, when we typically would see a slowdown in those October, November months. But depending on what happens with school, depending on what happens with, jobs and the economy in general, those numbers could be skewed towards the second half of the year. So I think that this wheel obviously is historical data, and we haven't been through anything like what we're going through right now. But, yes, generally here, summer is a huge time, but I wouldn't count autumn and winter out in 2020.
Be the best year yet.
Woo, best year ever. Any questions out there? Or Nathan, was there anything else you wanted to say about that slide?
No, you covered it.
Did I steal your thunder?
No, not at all. No.
All right, good. I'm just looking to see, Fergus popped in here. I don't see any other questions out there. If anybody has any, feel free to write them on our page, comment on it later. We are certainly happy to answer those questions. Send us a DM. If you call 904-476-5539, you'll get somebody from our team at any point in time. Anything you guys want to add?
Not me. No, I think that's pretty good. This information is always great. That's, learned that stat right there about election year. That was good.
Did you learn something new?
Conversation topic.
Yeah. Well, we would love any suggestions of who we should bring on in future weeks. And thank you very much to Nathan for joining us this week. Thank you for sharing your research. We know you put some time and effort into that, so it's always appreciated. And until next time, everybody stay safe out there, hydrate. The weather is brutal. See you next time. Bye.